At the lavish engagement party, Rosalind stood frozen as her fiancé Clinton wrapped his arm around his mistress, mocking her in front of hundreds of guests. The ridicule cut like a blade, leaving her breathless, her legs trembling beneath the cold chandelier lights. As every gaze turned away, a stranger stepped forward, placed his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Don't cry. He's not worth it." In that moment, their fates began to shift in ways no one could have predicted. Rosalind Hale had spent 29 years believing that love meant sacrifice. She had been the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, who stayed up late helping others with their problems, who dimmed her own light so someone else could shine brighter. When Clinton Moore entered her life 3 years ago, she thought she had finally found someone who saw her worth. He was 32, ambitious, and possessed the kind of confidence that made rooms go quiet when he spoke. He worked in commercial real estate development, closing deals that turned empty lots into luxury condominiums. To Rosalind, he seemed like someone who knew where he was going and wanted her beside him. But what she didn't see, or perhaps what she chose not to see, was that Clinton valued her the way one values a well-placed accessory. She was presentable, educated, soft-spoken. She didn't challenge him in public or demand too much attention. She had given up her position as a junior editor at a literary magazine to focus on wedding planning and supporting his career. Her friends had asked if she was sure. Her mother had looked concerned. Rosalind had smiled and said she was building a future. Vivian Brooks was everything Rosalind was not. Sharp-edged where Rosalind was gentle, calculating where Rosalind was trusting. She worked as a consultant for the same development firm as Clinton, and somewhere between late-night project meetings and business dinners, she had decided that Clinton's life looked like something worth taking. She was 28, attractive in a deliberate way, and possessed the particular cruelty that comes from believing the world operates on a simple hierarchy of winners and losers. The engagement party was Clinton's idea. He had insisted on the grandest ballroom at the Grandview Hotel, on a guest list that read like a who's who of the city's business community. Rosalind had wanted something smaller, something intimate. But Clinton had convinced her that this was important for his career, for their future. So she had spent weeks selecting flowers, coordinating seating arrangements, and choosing a dress that made her feel like she was playing a part in someone else's story. The ballroom glittered with crystal and gold. Tables were draped in ivory silk. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Rosalind stood near the entrance in her champagne-colored gown, greeting guests who offered congratulations that felt increasingly hollow. Clinton was late. She checked her phone. No message. She smiled at another well-wisher and felt the first flutter of unease in her chest. Then Clinton arrived. But he was not alone. He entered with Vivian on his arm, both of them laughing as if they were arriving at their own celebration. The room grew quiet in that particular way that signals something has gone terribly wrong. Clinton's gaze found Rosalind across the crowd. He did not look away. He did not let go of Vivian's hand. Instead, he walked directly toward Rosalind with the kind of deliberate cruelty that comes from someone who has already decided he is untouchable. The conversations died in waves as people turned to watch. Rosalind felt her breath catch. Her hands went cold. She wanted to move, to speak, to do anything, but her body refused to cooperate. Clinton stopped 3 feet from her, close enough that she could see the lack of remorse in his eyes. "Sorry we're late," Clinton said, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "Vivian and I got caught up." He let the implication hang in the air like smoke. Someone gasped. A glass clinked against a table. Rosalind's vision narrowed. Vivian stepped forward, her red dress a deliberate contrast to Rosalind's soft champagne. She looked Rosalind up and down with the kind of assessment that strips a person bare. "That's a lovely dress," Vivian said, her tone making it clear she thought the opposite. "Very safe, very you." Clinton laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Vivian's right. You've always been too safe, Rosalind, too accommodating, too willing to disappear." He turned to address the room, as if giving a speech. "I think we all know this engagement was a mistake. Rosalind is a wonderful person, really. She's just not the kind of woman I need beside me. She's too gentle to be a real partner. She'd rather fade into the background than stand in the spotlight." The words landed like physical blows. Rosalind felt her face burning. She heard whispers rippling through the crowd. Some people looked away, uncomfortable. Others leaned in, phones raised, recording the humiliation for whatever audience consumed such things. A few guests gathered their belongings and left quickly, unwilling to be associated with the spectacle. But many stayed, watching with the dark fascination people reserve for disasters. Vivian moved closer to Clinton, deliberately intimate. She placed her hand on his chest, looked up at him with exaggerated adoration, then turned back to Rosalind. "I hope there are no hard feelings," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "Clinton and I just have a connection you can't fake. Real passion. Real fire." She leaned up and kissed Clinton on the mouth, slowly, deliberately, while standing just feet from Rosalind. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Someone laughed nervously. A camera flash went off. Rosalind felt the ground tilting beneath her. Her carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time, in front of everyone she knew, everyone Clinton knew, everyone who would remember this moment forever. Rosalind's hands began to shake. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. She had imagined many things going wrong at her engagement party. A catering mistake. A wardrobe malfunction. Even Clinton getting cold feet and needing reassurance. But this calculated, public destruction of her dignity. This was beyond anything her gentle heart had prepared for. Clinton looked at her with something close to satisfaction. "I'm calling off the engagement," he announced to the room. "Effective immediately. I hope everyone understands." He said it like a business decision, like he was canceling a contract that no longer served his interests. Tears burned in Rosalind's eyes. She tried to blink them back, tried to maintain some fragment of composure, but her body betrayed her. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then, another. She felt her face crumpling despite every effort to hold herself together. She could not speak, could not move, could only stand there as the reality crashed over her in waves. The whispers grew louder. People were talking about her, about Clinton, about what this meant. Some looked at her with pity, others with curiosity, a few with barely concealed satisfaction, as if her humiliation confirmed something they had suspected all along. Rosalind understood in that moment that she was not a person to them. She was entertainment, a story they would tell at dinner parties. The woman who got dumped at her own engagement party. She turned and ran. Not gracefully, not with dignity. She just ran, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her dress gathering in her fists as she pushed through the ballroom doors and into the service corridor beyond. She heard someone call her name but did not stop. Could not stop. She needed to be anywhere but there, anywhere but under those lights, those eyes, that unbearable weight of collective judgment. The corridor was dimly lit and blessedly empty. Rosalind collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving, her carefully applied makeup running in dark streams down her face. She pressed her palms against the cold wall and tried to breathe, tried to think, tried to make sense of what had just happened. But there was no sense to be made. There was only the raw, animal pain of betrayal, of being publicly discarded like something worthless. She did not hear the footsteps approaching until they stopped a few feet away. She looked up, expecting hotel staff or perhaps one of Clinton's friends coming to deliver some final insult. Instead, she saw a man she did not recognize. He was tall, with dark hair graying slightly at the temples, wearing a simple gray suit that looked worn but well cared for. His face was lined with the kind of experience that comes from living through things, not just witnessing them. He held a pressed white handkerchief in his hand. He did not come closer, did not invade her space. He simply held out the handkerchief and waited. When she did not take it, he set it gently on the ledge beside her and took a step back. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet and steady. "Don't cry," he said. "He's not worth it." The simplicity of the statement broke something loose in Rosalind. Not worth it. 3 words that acknowledged her pain without trying to fix it, without telling her it would be okay, or that time would heal, or any of the other hollow reassurances people offer in moments like this. Just a simple truth. He's not worth it. And the stranger who said it had kind eyes. Rosalind took the handkerchief. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed the cloth against her face and breathed. The man waited, patient and undemanding. After a long moment, she managed to speak. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was raw. "I'm Elias," the man said. "Elias Carter. I'm the technical manager for the hotel's conference center. I was in the service hallway when I heard the commotion." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm sorry you're going through this." Rosalind nodded, unable to form a coherent response. Elias did not seem to need one. He glanced back toward the ballroom doors, then returned his attention to her. "Is there someone I can call for you? A friend? Family?" The question made Rosalind realize how alone she was. Her closest friends had distanced themselves when she stopped working, stopped being available, stopped being herself. Her mother was 2 states away. Her father had passed when she was young. She had built her entire life around Clinton, and now that foundation had vanished. "No," she said quietly. "There's no one." Elias absorbed this information without judgment. He leaned against the opposite wall, maintaining a respectful distance. "Then I'll stay here until you're ready to leave. You shouldn't be alone right now." It was not a request or an offer. It was simply a statement of what he intended to do. They sat in silence for a while. Rosalind's breathing slowly steadied. The tears stopped, leaving her face sticky and her eyes swollen. She felt hollowed out, like someone had reached inside and removed something essential. But she also felt something unexpected. A small flicker of gratitude that this stranger had chosen kindness when the rest of the world had chosen cruelty. "Why are you helping me?" Rosalind asked finally. "You don't know me." Elias was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of his own history. "Because I know what it's like to be left standing in pieces," he said. "And I know how much it matters when someone sees you as a person instead of a spectacle." There was something in his tone that made Rosalind look at him more closely. She saw the sadness in his eyes, the way he held himself like someone who had learned to be small, to take up less space. "What happened to you?" she asked. Elias smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "That's a longer story. Maybe one for another time, if you want to hear it." He pushed off from the wall. "Right now, let me walk you to your car. Or I can call you a cab. Whatever you need." Rosalind realized she did not want to be alone. Not yet. Not in the crushing silence of her apartment where every corner would remind her of the future she had been building. "I don't want to go home," she admitted. "I don't know where to go." "There's a diner 2 blocks from here," Elias said. "Open all night. Terrible coffee but decent pie. It's quiet. No one will bother you there." He extended his hand, not to pull her up, but as an offer. "My shift ended an hour ago. I've got nowhere to be." Rosalind hesitated, then took his hand. It was calloused and warm. He helped her to her feet with gentle care, as if she might shatter. She gathered her dress, wiped her face once more with the handkerchief, and followed Elias through the service exit into the cool night air. Behind them, the sounds of the party continued, muffled and distant. Ahead of them, the city lights flickered like uncertain promises. The diner was exactly as Elias had described, fluorescent lit, half empty, filled with the smell of burnt coffee and old grease. They sat in a corner booth. A tired waitress brought water and menus without comment. Rosalind ordered nothing. Elias ordered 2 slices of apple pie and 2 cups of coffee. When they arrived, he pushed one of each toward her. "You should eat something," he said gently. She picked at the pie with her fork, not really tasting it. Elias ate slowly, giving her space to speak or stay silent as she chose. "Finally," Rosalind said, "I gave up everything for him. My job, my friends, my whole life. I thought we were building something together. But he just saw me as something disposable." "That says everything about him and nothing about you," Elias replied. "People who discard others like that, they're the ones who are empty inside. They fill themselves up with power and attention because they don't have anything real." Rosalind looked at him. "You sound like you've been through something similar." Elias set down his fork. For a long moment, he seemed to be deciding how much to share. Then he began to speak, his voice low and measured. "I was married once. Her name was Catherine. We had a daughter together, Louisa. She's 7 now." He paused, the pain of the memory visible on his face. "Catherine died in a car accident 4 years ago. We were on our way to her parents' house for Thanksgiving. I was driving. A truck ran a red light and hit us on the passenger side. Rosalind's breath caught. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Catherine's family blamed me," Elias continued. "They said I should have been more careful, should have seen it coming, should have done something different. They fought for custody of Louisa daughter. Said I was an unfit father. Said I was responsible for their daughter's death. They had money, lawyers, connections. I had grief and a job managing conference center equipment." He looked down at his coffee. "I fought for 2 years. In the end, the court sided with me, but Catherine's parents made it clear I was no longer part of their family. They haven't spoken to me or Louisa since." "That's terrible," Rosalind said, her own pain momentarily forgotten in the face of his story. "How do you live with that?" "You wake up every day and you choose to keep going," Elias said simply. "You do it for the people who need you. For Louisa Dacha. She lost her mother. She doesn't deserve to lose her father too." He met Rosalind's eyes. "Pain doesn't make us special. Everyone's carrying something. What matters is what we do with it. Do we let it make us cruel? Or do we let it teach us to be kinder?" Rosalind felt something shift inside her. This man, this stranger, had suffered loss that made her own pain feel small by comparison. Yet here he was offering kindness to someone he did not know, speaking with a grace born from genuine hardship. "I don't know if I can be kind right now," she admitted. "I feel like I'm drowning in anger." "Then be angry," Elias said. "That's allowed. Just don't let it become who you are. Don't let what he did define the rest of your life." He finished his coffee and signaled for the check. "You're going to survive this, Rosalind. It doesn't feel like it right now, but you will. And when you come out the other side, you're going to be someone who knows her own worth. Yeah. Someone who doesn't need anyone's permission to be whole." They left the diner as the city was beginning to wake. Street cleaners hummed past. A few early commuters hurried toward subway stations. Elias walked Rosalind to her car, waited while she got in, then stepped back. "If you need anything," he said, "I'm at the Grandview Conference Center office. Don't hesitate." Rosalind nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She drove home as the sun rose, her mind full of everything that had happened. The humiliation, the pain, the unexpected kindness from a stranger who understood what it meant to be broken and still choose to stand. Over the following days, the video of Rosalind's public humiliation spread across social media. Someone had posted it with a caption calling it the engagement party from hell. It was shared thousands of times. People commented with a mixture of sympathy and judgment. Some defended Clinton, saying Rosalind must have done something to deserve it. Others called Clinton a monster. Most just watched and moved on, consuming her pain as entertainment before scrolling to the next thing. But the video had consequences Clinton had not anticipated. His business partners began to distance themselves. The development firm where he worked received calls from investors expressing concern about his character and judgment. A major deal fell through when the client said they could not work with someone who conducted themselves so poorly in their personal life. Clinton's carefully constructed reputation began to crack. Vivian, meanwhile, revealed her true nature. She had wanted Clinton's status and connections, not Clinton himself. As his professional standing crumbled, so did her interest. She stopped returning his calls. When he showed up at her apartment, she told him through the intercom that she had moved on to better opportunities. Clinton found himself suddenly alone, his engagement broken, his mistress gone, his career in jeopardy, and the internet's judgment raining down on him from every direction. He tried to spin the narrative, posted a statement claiming Rosalind had been controlling and manipulative, said he had been trying to free himself from an unhealthy relationship. But the video told a different story. People could see his cruelty, could hear his mocking tone, could watch Vivian kiss him while his fiancé stood feet away in tears. The lies did not take hold. If anything, they made things worse. Clinton began calling Rosalind, leaving voicemails that ranged from apologetic to accusatory, blaming her for not being woman enough to keep him, blaming her for the way people now saw him. Each message revealed more of his fundamental emptiness, his inability to take responsibility, his desperate need to be seen as anything other than what he truly was, a small man who had mistaken cruelty for power. Rosalind did not answer, did not listen to most of the messages. She was learning, slowly and painfully, that some people exist only to take. They cannot love because they do not understand love. They can only possess, use, and discard. Clinton was one of those people. She had spent 3 years trying to be enough for someone who was fundamentally insufficient himself. The realization was both devastating and liberating. She also discovered something else. A week after the engagement party, she received a message from someone named Marcus Chen, a former colleague of Elias. The message explained that he had seen Rosalind's story and wanted to share something she should know. Could they meet? They met at a coffee shop downtown. Marcus was in his 50s, with gray hair and intelligent eyes. He got straight to the point. Elias Carter is the one who helped you, isn't he? The man in the hotel corridor. How do you know him? I worked with him at Preston Engineering, Marcus said. Elias was one of the most brilliant engineers I've ever met. Specialized in sustainable building systems. He designed a water reclamation system that reduced waste by 60% in commercial buildings. It was revolutionary. Rosalind was confused, but he works at a hotel managing conference center equipment. Marcus nodded grimly, because he was betrayed by someone who stole his work and claimed it as their own. Someone who had the connections and the ruthlessness to make the theft stick. He pulled out a folder and set it on the table. That someone was your ex-fiancé, Clinton Moore. The revelation hit Rosalind like cold water. She opened the folder. Inside were documents, emails, design schematics, all dating back 6 years. She saw Elias's signature on the original designs. Saw subsequent documents with Clinton's name replacing Elias's. Saw correspondence from Preston Engineering's legal team threatening Elias with career destruction if he pursued claims. How did Clinton do this? Rosalind asked, her voice shaking. Clinton was working as a junior developer at Preston when Elias presented his system, Marcus explained. He saw an opportunity. He copied Elias's designs, presented them to the firm's partners as his own work, and when Elias tried to fight back, Clinton used his connections and his family's legal team to bury him. Elias was young, had no resources to fight a prolonged legal battle, and he had just lost his wife. He was grieving, vulnerable, trying to raise a daughter alone. Clinton knew this and exploited it. Rosalind felt rage building in her chest. Not the hot, destructive rage of humiliation, but something colder and more focused. Why are you telling me this now? Because Elias won't fight for himself, Marcus said. He spent the last 4 years taking care of his daughter, working whatever jobs he can get, staying quiet. But the truth deserves to be told. And I thought, given what Clinton just did to you, you might be the right person to help tell it. Rosalind looked at the documents spread across the table. She thought about Elias in the corridor, offering kindness when he had every reason to be bitter. She thought about the way he had spoken about pain and choice, and not letting cruelty make you cruel. What do you need from me? She asked. Help me get these documents to the right people, Marcus said. The Engineering Ethics Board. The media. Anyone who will listen. Clinton built his career on a lie. It's time people knew the truth. Over the next several weeks, Rosalind threw herself into uncovering the full extent of Clinton's theft. She worked with Marcus to compile evidence, to interview former colleagues, to build an irrefutable case. She found more victims along the way. Other people Clinton had stepped on, stolen from, discarded when they were no longer useful. She documented everything meticulously. She also started spending time with Elias and his daughter, Louisa. The little girl was bright and curious, with her father's kind eyes and her mother's smile, preserved in photographs that Elias kept on every surface of their small apartment. Louisa took to Rosalind immediately, showing her drawings and asking questions about everything from why the sky was blue to whether unicorns were real. Being around them was healing in ways Rosalind had not expected. She learned that family was not always blood, that love did not always look like grand gestures and expensive gifts. Sometimes love was teaching a 7-year-old to make pancakes on a Sunday morning. Sometimes it was falling asleep on a worn couch while watching a children's movie. Sometimes it was simply being present for someone, consistently and without expectation of return. Elias never pushed, never demanded. He let Rosalind exist in their space, without needing her to be anything other than herself. He listened when she needed to talk. He gave her silence when she needed to think. Slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild what Clinton and life had broken in them. The evidence against Clinton was damning. Rosalind and Marcus presented it to the Engineering Ethics Board, which launched a formal investigation. They also gave copies to a journalist who specialized in corporate misconduct. The story broke on a Tuesday morning. By noon, it was trending. By evening, Preston Engineering had placed Clinton on administrative leave pending their own internal review. The documents showed not just the theft of Elias's work, but a pattern of behavior. Clinton had climbed his career ladder by appropriating others' ideas, by taking credit for collaborative work, by systematically undermining anyone who threatened his advancement. The revelation destroyed what remained of his professional reputation. Clients pulled contracts. Partners distanced themselves. The firm that had once celebrated him now treated him like a liability. Clinton tried to fight back. Hired lawyers. Issued statements. Claimed the documents were fabricated. But Marcus had prepared too well. Every piece of evidence was verified, dated, witnessed. Clinton's lies crumbled under scrutiny. Within a month, he was forced to resign from Preston Engineering. Within 2, he was facing potential criminal charges for fraud and theft of intellectual property. Vivian, predictably, was nowhere to be found. She had moved on to her next target, leaving Clinton to face the consequences alone. He called Rosalind one final time, his voice desperate and broken. "You did this," he said. "You destroyed me." "No," Rosalind replied, her voice steady and calm. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure people knew the truth." She hung up and blocked his number. She felt no satisfaction in his downfall, no sense of victory. Only a quiet certainty that justice, however imperfect, had finally arrived. The engineering board formally recognized Elias's original work and issued a public statement about the theft. Several firms reached out, offering him positions. After 6 years of working in hotel basements and conference centers, Elias had choices again. He accepted a position at a sustainable design firm that valued integrity as much as innovation. The salary was enough to move Louisa to a better school, to stop worrying about making rent, to breathe. Rosalind found her own path forward. She returned to editing, not at her old magazine, but freelance, working with writers who needed someone who understood the vulnerability of putting your work into the world. She was good at it, better than she remembered. The years with Clinton had not destroyed her abilities. They had only hidden them beneath layers of doubt and accommodation. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after the engagement party that had shattered her life, Rosalind sat in Elias's small apartment. Louisa was at the table, coloring a picture of a castle with impossible towers and rainbow flags. Elias was in the kitchen, making tea. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching dust motes in golden columns. "Rosalind," Louisa called out, "can you help me color the dragon?" Rosalind moved to sit beside the little girl, taking the offered green crayon. Together they worked in comfortable silence, adding scales and fire and all the details that made a dragon fearsome and magnificent. Louisa leaned against Rosalind's shoulder, trusting and warm. Elias brought the tea and sat down across from them. He watched Rosalind and his daughter together, and something in his expression softened. This was not the story any of them had expected to live. Not the fairy tale with princes and palaces and happily ever after proclaimed at grand ceremonies. This was something quieter. Something earned through pain and choice, and the daily decision to be kind when the world gave you every reason not to be. "I've been thinking," Elias said carefully, "about what comes next, for all of us." Rosalind looked up from the coloring page. "And what do you think comes next?" "I think we've both spent enough time running from the past," Elias said. "I think we've earned the right to stop and build something real. Not perfect. Not what we planned. But real." Louisa looked between them with the particular wisdom of children who understand more than they should. "Are you going to be here forever, Rosalind?" she asked, her voice hopeful and uncertain in equal measure. Rosalind felt her throat tighten. She looked at this little girl who had lost her mother too young, at this man who had been broken by the same person who broke her, at this small apartment filled with second-hand furniture and cheap picture frames and more genuine love than she had ever known in Clinton's world of luxury and emptiness. "I'm not going anywhere," Rosalind said softly. And as she said it, she realized it was true. This was not a temporary refuge or a rebound or a way station between one life and another. This was home, in the truest sense she had ever understood the word. Elias reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was gentle, unhurried, certain. "Thank you," he said, "for being here, for seeing us, for staying." "Thank you," Rosalind replied, "for whispering the right words at exactly the right time, for reminding me that not everyone leaves, that some people stay, even when staying is hard." Outside, the city continued its endless motion. People were getting engaged, and breaking up and starting over. Somewhere, Clinton was facing his consequences. Somewhere, Vivian was searching for her next opportunity. But in this small apartment, with its second-hand table and its green dragon and its hard-won peace, 3 people who had been broken were learning how to be whole together. Louisa finished coloring the dragon and held it up proudly. "Look," she said, "it's perfect." And in that moment, with the afternoon light painting everything gold, and the smell of tea cooling in chipped mugs, and the sound of a child's laughter, Rosalind believed her. Not because the dragon was technically perfect, but because perfection had never been the point. The point was sitting at this table. The point was choosing each other. The point was building something real from the wreckage of everything that had come before. Elias smiled, the first truly unguarded smile Rosalind had seen from him. "Yes," he agreed, looking not at the dragon, but at the 2 of them, at his daughter and this woman who had walked into their lives through the corridor of her own broken dream. "It's perfect." And Rosalind, who had spent so many years believing she needed to be smaller, quieter, less herself to be loved, finally understood what she had been searching for. Not grand gestures or expensive parties or public declarations. Just this. Just presence and consistency. And the quiet courage to keep choosing kindness when the world kept offering reasons to be cruel. She squeezed Elias's hand, feeling the calluses that told the story of his survival, feeling the warmth that told the story of his hope. "Thank you," she whispered again, "for everything." "Don't thank me yet," Elias said with a small smile. "Louisa's going to rope you into her science fair project next month. Something about volcanoes. It's going to get messy." Louisa perked up. "Can you help, Rosalind? Please. Dad says we can make it explode." Rosalind laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. When was the last time she had laughed like that? When was the last time she had felt light enough to find joy in something as simple as a child's enthusiasm for exploding baking soda? "I would love to help with the volcano," she said. And she meant it. Every word. Because this was what healing looked like. Not grand revelations or dramatic transformations, but small moments of choosing connection over isolation, joy over bitterness, presence over escape. This was what it meant to survive something terrible, and come out the other side not unchanged, but not destroyed either. As the afternoon stretched into evening, as Louisa eventually grew tired and curled up on the couch with her head in Rosalind's lap, as Elias sat beside them with his hand resting gently on Rosalind's shoulder, the 3 of them existed in a peace that none of them had believed possible 6 months ago. Rosalind looked around the apartment, at its worn furniture, and its overflowing bookshelves, and its refrigerator covered in Louisa's artwork, and thought, "This is enough. This is more than enough. This is everything." She had walked into that engagement party believing she needed Clinton's approval to have value, his love to have worth, his presence to have a future. She walked out of it with nothing, standing in a corridor in tears, certain her life was over. But Elias had been right. Clinton was not worth her tears. He had never been worth anything real at all. And in losing him, in being humiliated and broken, and forced to rebuild from nothing, Rosalind had found something infinitely more valuable. She had found herself. She had found people who saw her not as an accessory or a convenience, but as someone essential. "Rosalind?" Louisa's sleepy voice drifted up from her lap. "Yes, sweetheart? I'm glad you're here." Rosalind felt tears prick her eyes, but these were different from the tears in the corridor. These were not tears of humiliation or loss. These were tears of gratitude, of relief, of finally understanding that sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find what you actually needed all along. "I'm glad I'm here too," Rosalind whispered, smoothing the child's hair. "So glad." Elias's hand tightened slightly on her shoulder, a silent agreement, a quiet promise. They had all been broken by circumstances and by people who did not value what they should have treasured, but they had found each other in the wreckage. And together, Slowly, carefully, with patience and grace and the kind of love that does not demand but simply offers, they were building something that would last. Outside the windows, the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, pushing back the darkness. And inside, three people who had learned the hard way that worth cannot be given or taken away, only recognized or missed, sat together in the glow of a single lamp and understood that they were, at last, exactly where they belonged. Rosalind closed her eyes and let herself rest, truly rest, for the first time in years. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, did not know if this fragile peace would hold, or if new challenges waited around corners she could not yet see. But she knew this: she was not alone. She was seen. She was valued. And that was enough. More than enough. Everything.